Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, December 14th. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair McGill.
Here?
Vice Chair Feck.
Here.
Commissioner Aldana.
Present.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton.
You.
Commissioner Longstreet.
Here.
Commissioner Unandur LaBerge.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay, thanks. And any written public comment other than for agenda items? I don't think I saw any. Okay, thanks. And that brings us to public comment. My glasses are fogging up already. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion for the commission. Total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. Those of you in the audience that have done speaker slips for the trees, that'll come up as an agenda item. Do we have any public comment other than agenda items? Okay, do we have anybody online?
Anyone wishing to speak under general public comment, please raise your hand. We have one person, Mr. Paul Salcedo. Let me go ahead and unmute yourself.
And you will have 2 minutes.
I just wanted to tell you guys that I actually had an arborist come and survey the tree, and I have a letter here that he sent me, talking about his feelings about the tree, and I'm wondering if I can submit that and go on record with that. Or maybe
Mr. Salcedo, this is general public comment. You're actually wanting to comment on your tree item, which will be discussed later in the meeting. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to lower your hand, and when that item comes up, we can go ahead and call on you then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, thanks. And that's it?
That is it.
Okay,
That is
great.
all.
Okay, great, thanks. And now that takes us to the Youth Council report. If you could introduce yourself, because you don't show up on the orange sheet.
Okay. Good afternoon, Parks and Recreation Commission. My name is Sophia Cruz, publicist for the Santa Barbara Youth Council. I would like to provide a brief update on past and current Youth Council events. My Vice Chair, Kavya, is running late, so I'll be taking care of the whole thing. On Friday, October 28th, Youth Council successfully held the 3rd annual Trunk or Treat in partnership with the Santa Barbara Police Activities League. Together, we hosted roughly 1,000 community members and were able to provide a great Halloween experience for families. On November 7th, the Youth Council received a presentation on behalf of the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department and Loop on tobacco products. This presentation provided statistics on decreasing rates of vaping in Santa Barbara teens. Similarly, there is a rise in smoking and vaping for Santa Barbara teens who attend alternate or continuation high schools. Youth Council is brainstorming ways to address this growing issue. Our goal is to brainstorm ways in which we can raise awareness of the negative effects that tobacco can have not just on health but on the environment. On September 19th, Youth Council voted to host a Santa's workshop to aid in preparing toys for low-income children. In November, Youth Council received a donation of roughly 155 toys from Unity Shop. We held 2 Santa's workshops on Monday, November 21st and Monday, November 28th at the Franklin Neighborhood Center. Santa Barbara Youth Council members and their friends were so happy to come together and wrap gifts for children and families in need. Gifts will be distributed tomorrow on December 15th. This month, Youth Council received a presentation from State Street Master Planner Tess Harris. During this presentation, members learned about the planning process for city projects and how important working with the community on these projects is. Youth Council was happy to provide our input and put into words what we believed would benefit future youth. We hope that youth voices will continue to be heard in this process as the city redesigns this space. Last week, Youth Council proceeded to the interview portion of our grant application with the Fund for Santa Barbara Youth Making Change. We hope to hear back in early February. The grant writing and interview process has been new to some of our members, but a process that we have been lucky to learn from. Youth Council has concluded meetings for this year and looks forward to reconvening on Monday, January 9th. Parks and Recreation Commission, we thank you for your time. Can we answer any questions that the commission may have?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your service to youth and to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody on the council. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Cruz? Any comments?
Well, a comment, just congratulate you for all your good work.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and really appreciate the focus on vaping and tobacco. It seems like the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's an eternal focus, but an important one. So thank you, and I think it's great that you're getting involved in State Street and the grant writing process. Those are, I think, really getting that involved in the civic process is important, and hats off to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings me to the committee assignment reports, and I will start on my left with Commissioner Aldana.
And the only thing I had to report is I was able to go to Puerto Vallarta for 10 days. That was a Sister City Committee 50th anniversary. And the Sister City Committee unveiled a mosaic bench at the Lázaro Cárdenas Park. So we have a 50th anniversary bench on a gazebo there. So, and most of our members have their name there. There was different tiles, and it's a beautiful park. So, but it was very nice over there.
Yeah, some people are getting some really tough assignments, I see.
Yeah. It was rough. But
Did you visit any skateboard parks?
no skateboard parks over there. I took one for the team, though. I went over there.
Okay, Commissioner Clark.
I was unable to attend the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, but I did visit all those trees today. I went to, there was a dance at our Creo Rec Center on Friday, not an assignment, but it's always nice to see how our facilities are being used, and it was really nice to see a vibrant dance community coming back out there again. I encourage anybody watching this to look at the parks, the website, to see what dances are upcoming and what kind of classes you can take there. And also, not an assignment, but relevant, I virtually attended the County of Santa Barbara Park and Recreation Workshop. They're working on their new master plan. I've only been to in-person public workshops here when we're doing park planning, and I was really impressed with the online workshop style in which the facilitator would ask questions and people would answer these polls. I'm not sure if that's what we use for ours, but I think going forward, it would be nice to continue to have online public workshops. So there was a lot of attendance. I think the online component makes it more accessible for people to attend the planning process. So I would encourage our department to do the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Longstreet.
The Golf Advisory Committee didn't meet this month, so I did not attend a meeting.
Vice Chair Feck.
So the Creeks Commission's meeting today, so not able to attend, but also got news that Creeks is moving to the Sustainability and Resilience Department. So I suppose that means I need to be reassigned to a different advisory committee? Question
I
mark?
guess we'll guess. I
Yeah.
guess that's what that probably means.
Okay,
Yes.
so TBD.
Commissioner Hernando Labarge.
Yes, I attended last night the Arts and Crafts meeting that they do every month, and they have 3 new members that will be joining. I didn't realize that they offered food. They have this protein bar that this one local family makes that was very delicious, and they got approved. A woman who makes ceramic pet bowls got her bowls approved to be added, and then a woman from Russia who makes candles, knitted hats, and scarves, and little soaps got approved to be added. And they did decide, or city council decided, that the whole thing that they were talking about maybe whether some of the appeals of any of the decisions on the arts and crafts might come here, city council wants to keep there.
Okay,
Good for us.
thanks. Okay. And finally, Commissioner Lester Buxton.
I was unable to attend the youth council meeting.
Okay, thanks. And finally, with me, the Park Foundation meeting that was scheduled for today was canceled. We were going to be discussing annual fund and finances, and I guess the only thing I would bring to the table is that if anybody's inclined to donate to the Park Annual Fund, it's easy to do so by going onto the Park Foundation website. And thank you. Is this, MODOC, right, Maureen? Yes. Okay, and then that brings us to commission and staff communications. Director Zachary.
Chair McGill and commissioners, the most important thing we want to communicate, which all of you know already, is that this is the last meeting for Commissioner Beebe Longstreet, who has served on the commission since 1995 and has given the city and the community countless, thousands of hours, I would estimate, we could count them up perhaps, of her time, consideration, and dedication to Santa Barbara's parks, to its youth, to its recreation programs. And frankly speaking, as a staff member that's worked in the department for a long time, some of those years, she's been a tremendous mentor both to me and to the staff in our department, and a huge supporter of staff and the things that we're trying to do with limited resources. We're very sad to see Commissioner Longstreet leave. However, she has done an amazing tour of duty, and I know Chair McGill wanted to spend this time actually sharing some remarks too before we go on to the business of the meeting.
I'll keep it brief, since I haven't known you nearly. Yes. Since I haven't known you nearly as long as some of the others in this room. So, I think I've been on the commission for 5 years, and Commissioner Longstreet, Beebe, has been threatening to retire for a while now. But, I guess I never really believed she would do it to us. But my fantasy bubble has been burst, and she is indeed leaving us. But, it's only been 5 years, and so I've spent a little time this morning thinking back on what having Commissioner Longstreet to my left or right or wherever has meant. And, the obvious is that there's this history, more history than many of us combined. And I don't think we really appreciate how much that means necessarily. She's been there, done it, and has the backstory. That backstory has often brought up, when Ms. Longstreet, Commissioner Longstreet speaks, she brings a perspective, a broad perspective of the whole community to the table. And I just absolutely know we're not going to know what we're missing until she's not here. And I just think that's that reality. That perspective is so important. I've just always appreciated not only the passion that you've brought to the green space, but to, more important than the green space in the open areas, the people in the city that use that green space in those open areas. You're constantly thinking about how best to serve the community and the people. It goes way beyond trees and grass. And you just know how important it is for the city to be livable and what it takes to be livable. And I think most important for me is that you with maybe your years of experience, you're upfront, you speak your truth, you speak it honestly, and you speak it articulately. And when you stand in front of city council or whoever, people listen. And I listen. And I'm hoping that as you step away, there's going to be a little Beebe Longstreet sitting on my shoulder, um, whispering in my ear, and that I can think, what would Commissioner Longstreet be thinking and saying now as we go forward? And I just want to say how much I've really appreciated getting to know you and working with you over just 5 years. If anybody else would like to step in before we give her well, not one last, but one initial foray.
I'd like to say a little bit. I met Bibi with the Neighborhood Advisory Council. Prior to that, it was I was part of the Franklin Advisory Committee. You were the Lower West, I believe. And
Yeah, I did 8 years on Lower West Side before I
Yeah.
did
so we're
Parks and
going-
Rec.
Yeah, so this is 2007 or so. But she's been very involved, very engaged, and it goes without saying that her handprint is all over town. So it won't be the same. You know, part of history is going away from the dais and from the meetings, but not from the community. So thank you for your service.
I just want to say in gratitude for everything that you've done, I will try to carry the torch and be an advocate for our youth, recognize that giving them meaningful activities and programming will keep them out of trouble. I will be an advocate for our seniors, as you have always done, because they deserve to be cared for, engaged too. And I will also try to advocate, as you have, by constantly reminding the people around us that it's not just police and fire that make a robust and healthy community, that we need our parks and open spaces too, for our mental health and our physical health. Thank you for saying that so many times.
And would you like to respond, Commissioner Longstreet?
Since joining this commission, so many things have changed in the city. You know, I'm looking in the back and I see Mo and John, and you've been here as long as I have. You've been doing the same stuff at the golf course. But there's some things that make me particularly happy. Parque de los Niños is right at the top of the list because the Lower West Side had no open space, and we fought hard for that. The skateboard park. Whatever the problems are, our kids deserve that skateboard park the same way that people deserve the golf course and the tennis courts and all the other things. And in fact, we need more, and we always need more. You know, the dog park finally got opened, and the Douglas Family Preserve. I mean, you just look at what we have in our community, and we should be proud, but we should never stop fighting for more for our residents, for our kids. Times have changed in recreation. You know, I think we constantly have to work on our, with the school district just to make sure that our kids are safe. We're seeing some issues again this week that have come back up. And it's always cyclical, but it starts with keeping our kids busy and happy and safe. So that's always been my primary cause. And I think we've made hard decisions over the years, you know, and our budget, I think it's up to every citizen in this community to advocate for our budget, this commission especially, but to advocate to keep our open spaces safe and clean, and to appreciate the people that go to work every day in those spaces, that clean them, that maintain them, that come out in emergencies and clean up the trees and do all the things that happen. So it has been a pleasure. To me, it's been 25 years. It's been my class. It's where I go to learn stuff. And I've learned so much. I don't think I'll live to see De La Guerra Plaza renovated, but I served on that renovation committee twice. You know, there's things that we do as a city that I wish we could just bring to completion, and we don't seem to. But money's always the issue, and I hope in the future to just see things get better and better. And I commend the staff and the commission, and I know you'll be in good hands.
Thank you. Okay.
And now to the last round of trees.
No, we've got one more thing first. All right, we have ceremonial items, but I feel like we've just done it. Do we have any additional ceremonial items?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, that is our ceremonial item for the evening. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm glad that, because you basically would have upstaged anybody else, so. All right, so then that takes us to minutes from the last meeting, and the recommendation is that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 16th. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And now that brings us to trees. Mr. Slack, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove Canary Island date palm. This is a street tree located within the public right-of-way at 1318 East Mason Street. There were several reasons listed for removal in the application. Those reasons included complications with infrastructure. There was a gas vault or meter nearby, complications with the electrical service to the house and like the coax cables, like the communication, phone, cable TV, overhead, and then just general debris and maintenance-related concerns. The committee reviewed the tree and application. The tree was determined to be in pretty good health. It had recently been pruned. There was some discussion about the pruning of the tree. I think this is, sort of an extension of the conversation that we've had with the commission regarding palm trees as street trees, especially, on streets where there's not a lot of palm trees, and it's widely acknowledged that palm trees require quite a bit more maintenance than the shade trees. The committee also focused some attention on the nearby magnolia, which is also a street tree, commenting that, that tree seemed to be performing less than stellar, I guess, and some of that had to do with the competition between the existing date palm and the magnolia. Ultimately, after review, the committee determined that there could be measurable benefit from removing the date palm and allowing the magnolia more space to perform, and made a recommendation to approve the request for the removal of the Canary Island date palm at 1318 East Mason Street.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Excuse me. No, I don't. I mean, the only thing I noticed that really the reasoning for the removal approval really is not entirely related to the reasons for the request. I mean, things like debris and stuff in the request, it's more the maintenance and the magnolia, yes.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, that's correct. I think as we continue to really take critical looks at streets and the designated species and what really provides like measurable environmental benefits to the community, palms really aren't providing the same benefits that shade trees are, and that was really a driving, motivating factor. That does not mean that the tree doesn't have value. Staff recently maintained it, would continue to maintain it if it was retained, but there is benefit if the homeowner did elect to remove the date palm to the neighboring magnolia.
Okay, thanks. If there are no other questions, I will open it up for comment. I don't see any speaker slips for this tree here. I don't think, no. Is there anybody online?
Yes, Mr. Sonsetto. One moment, Mr.
that was
Sonsetto,
one.
I will
Okay.
unmute you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The one thing that it seemed like I mentioned it on my application, but I had an arborist look at it, and he brought up that there could be. In fact, I'm just going to read this sentence here, okay? This tree could be a danger to human life. Power lines have been knocked down by palm fronds, and that is a very dangerous situation. The needles on the fronds can also be dangerous and become a serious health issue if struck by one. Now, the reason I read that mainly is because, this tree has palm fronds that dangle down over the sidewalk and literally block the sidewalk. if they're not constantly maintained. You know, and I've been doing this since I moved here um, in 2012, and you know, it's starting to be a burden for me as I'm getting older. I'll be 65 in June, and it's really becoming something that's difficult for me physically. And being on a fixed income, you know, it can be a financial burden, and I get a little concerned about, you know, kids from Franklin School riding, you know, walking by there, riding bikes down the sidewalk. Um, I just wanted to add that comment in there, okay?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comment. Okay, do we have, if there are no other public comments, I'll open it up for discussion and/or a motion.
I would move that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for the removal of the Canary Island date palm at 1318 East Mason Street, and the principles of good forest management are met. Is that?
It's a street tree, so I don't think we even need one.
We don't? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Sorry, it's hard for me to twist around with this.
Only discussion that I would have is that if it was a setback tree, we would use the finding that it meets the principles of good forest
Yeah.
management, and that's what I'm basing my agreement on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so moved. And that takes us to Palisades.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next item for review is the request to remove a Tipuana tipu or tipu tree. This is located within the front setback of the property at 361 Palisades Drive. There were a few different reasons listed on the application for removal. Most of that had to do with like the long-term potential of this tree. I believe the Commission's fairly familiar with this species. They can get extremely large, and they drew attention to the fact that it's planted very close to the home and also adjacent to the driveway. The applicant was the tree care company that takes care of the tree, and they've actually been doing a really exemplary job managing the tree as it's continued to develop, but it is a tree that can grow to, you know, heights well over 60 feet and 60 feet in width. The committee noted the good pruning. The tree was in great shape overall. The conversation really revolved around the long-term potential and mature size of the tree, which was also, you know, the real driving reason and rationale on the application for removal. It is a tree that develops pretty significant surface rooting, and the arborist on the committee made comments that it was really only a matter of time, at least until the driveway was going to be pretty heavily damaged, and, you know, there's going to be long-term maintenance considerations with the canopy overextension over the roof and things like that. Ultimately, after review, the committee determined it would be more practical to remove the tree now and replace it with more suitable trees within the front setback. There's quite a bit of planting opportunity on this parcel. It sits on the corner, so there's actually two front setbacks. There's the setback on Palisades and also the setback along Cliff Drive. And after review and discussion, the committee recommended that the commission approve the removal on the condition that two new trees be planted within the front setback that could achieve a mature height of 25 feet, and recommended that the commission could make the finding that the principles of good forest management would be best served by the proposed removal.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? I guess I had one. I mean, that must not be a very old tree if this thing can get 60 feet in girth. But the real question I had was on the replacement trees, because, of course, the Palisades portion of it is pretty heavily canopied with the street trees. So you're just looking at the Palisades piece of it, it didn't seem like there was a lot of space for two trees. But was there setback for two trees, you think, on the cliff side?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, that's correct. I should have elaborated too with the determination for the condition of two trees had a lot to do with the long-term mature potential size of the existing tree. And prior to the meeting, in discussions with the applicant, they were pretty comfortable with the condition of having 2 trees.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, there aren't any speaker slips here. Do we have anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands.
Okey-doke. With that, I will open it up for discussion and/or a motion.
I can make a motion that we agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to approve the removal on the condition the applicant of the, Tipuana Tipu tree at, where's the address on here?
361 Palisades.
361 Palisades, on condition the applicant plant 2 shade trees in the setback that can achieve a minimum height of 25 feet at maturity.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And now we are on Santa Anita.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next item for review is a request to remove a jacaranda. This is located within the front setback of the property at 302 Santa Anita Road. On the application, the resident listed damage to the the wall that abuts the sidewalk and also damage to the road. The committee reviewed the tree. The tree is in great health, relatively young. The wall damage was noted to be superficial and could be visible pretty much for the full length of the wall. So there was, what was determined to be superficial cracking all the way throughout the wall. It wasn't just isolated specifically in the tree's root zone. The arborist did comment that the front yard's quite large. Root systems tend to be highly adaptable and will optimize based on growing conditions. So it was determined to be fairly unlikely that the root system would cause damage to the wall even in the long term. And after review and discussion, the committee made a recommendation to deny the request for the removal of the jacaranda at 302 Santa Anita Road.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Aldana.
Yes. As far as long-term maintenance on this tree and then the way the roots grow, in the future, it won't interfere with the wall? Is that what you're saying?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, I've learned to never say never when trees are involved. I think based on what we know about root systems and where they like to be and adaptive growth, it's highly unlikely. I think if the tree was closer to the wall, if the stem was closer to the wall, as the primary root system developed, there would be pressure. But I think there's a very low probability that the root system is going to cause complications with the wall in the long term.
So I guess I had one question. When I was reading the application, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure I am, it was one of the local tree companies that had said something to the applicant about the jacaranda causing cracking. Am I remembering this? On the application, it said that it was Branch Out that had said that it was the jacaranda that was causing the cracking. Is there any, do you have any thoughts on that? Where the difference in opinion could be coming from?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, it's certainly a different opinion. There's motivations within the private industry for generating work. I think without exploratory work, there's really no definitive way to show that there's damage to the wall. There's no evidence. The stucco, it's superficial. Conversations with the applicant on site, we did express that if there was really a concern with root damage to the wall, that doing some exploratory work would work. I don't really understand why they would make those statements, and I can't really elaborate on it.
Okay, thanks, yeah.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, just a point of note, walls are structural or decorative, and just like everything else, there's always settling that occurs. It could be very well that there could be minor cracks associated with that. That said, that's not for us to determine, since that's not really our role. However, if the commission were to concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee, that wouldn't preclude the applicant from returning at a future date. It's not that it can't be removed forever, it's just at this time, recommendation is there's not enough findings to demonstrate the need to remove it.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I don't have any speaker slips for it. Do we have anybody online?
No hands are raised.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will open it for discussion and/or a motion. And I guess the only comment I would make is that, we looked at the whole length of the wall, and yes, there was a lot of, like you say, sort of almost spider web cracking, but I didn't see any signs of dislocation or settling, really, just superficial cracking is the way you describe it.
Also on the, may I say something? Of course. Also on the application, I think one of the reasons for wanting to remove it was damage to the road, but I believe any damage to the road, if there was damage, would be Public Works responsibility, not the applicant's. So, that's it.
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion that we concur with the Street Tree Committee recommendation to deny the removal of the jacaranda at 302 Santa Anita Road, and that there are no findings pursuant to 152409.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, thank you. Gibraltar.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next item for review is a request to remove an American sweet gum. This tree is located within the front setback of the property at 1901 Gibraltar. The applicant listed several reasons for removal, including the location of the tree and proximity to the road, noting the road's very narrow, citing access issues. There was reference to a conversation with fire prevention staff as well, noting they would support the removal. We've seen these instances before. Fire will say that they support a removal, but they will not say that the tree has to be taken out. So there's a clear difference between their supporting a removal versus us receiving written correspondence asking us to remove a tree, which does happen on occasion. The primary reason, I think, was really a desire to make landscape improvements to the property. The applicant expressed the desire to remove the American sweet gum and plant 3 to 4 olives closer to the driveway on the other side of the fence along their property to just enhance their landscape, provide some more screening, and add just more canopy cover to the property. The committee reviewed the tree, noted it had been well maintained, was in very good health, and really kind of struggled to find good rationale for removing the tree in its current state, despite the applicant's desire to plant more trees than the existing tree. After discussion, the committee made a recommendation to deny the request for the American sweet gum at 1901 Gibraltar Road.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Any over here? Okay. I kind of find this one was a little bit of a tough one. I mean, I see both sides. But we don't have any specific questions. We do have one speaker slip. It is Jerry Simmons. Okay, so, okay, I see right there that you do not wish to speak, but you are available. Okay, and I think we all received the letter and the photo earlier, and that photo was actually quite helpful, at least to me. But so does anybody have any?
I have nothing to add to my written comments,
Okay.
Commissioners, but I wanted to make sure I was available if you did have any questions.
Okay, great. I think if we do have any questions, we'll just say, and you can come back up.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, all right. I'm assuming we have nothing online?
Correct.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Well, I think it's a beautiful tree, of course. I love these. I know I have, though I love to hate them because I have 3 of them in my street tree, in my sidewalk, and and particularly in the fall, they're gorgeous. But, it's, okay. We'll start with Commissioner Clark and then Vice Chair Feck.
I guess I think I read in our agenda packet that the Street Tree Advisory Committee suggested that there was room to retain the liquid amber and still plant 3 olive trees in succession. That would provide screening. Is that correct?
And Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, that is essentially correct. There was quite a bit of discussion, and as Chair McGill noted, I think the committee even was kind of conflicted when reviewing this proposal. But when we were on site, there were comments made that the retention of the tree wouldn't preclude the applicant from moving forward with their plans, and also essentially to do so and then return at some point in the future, once the tree's matured, and it made a little bit more sense to remove the sweet gum.
Commissioners, may I address that point, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I submitted, along with my written comments, a photograph, and it was really about the best I could do, putting orange cones along my driveway
yes.
where we hopefully intended to locate the olive trees. And you can see that there really isn't room for 3 olives, that there's really only room for 2 olives unless we take out the liquid amber. So I had discussions with our landscape contractor, and what we were proposing was that we would do some excavation where that 3rd tree would go to make absolutely sure that we could put an olive there. This is a notoriously rocky area, as I'm sure you are well aware. So, we wouldn't take out the liquid amber unless we were sure that we could get an olive in there. Our screening really is sort of contingent on having a line of olives along there. So the 3rd one actually really does matter. During the winter months, the wisteria along the driveway that you can see in this photograph, along with the liquid amber, they're bare. And the street is really right there, and we really would like to have a little additional screening for privacy. We have a very, very glass house, so
I have a question.
privacy is of concern.
Okay, thank you.
My concern is, in my experience, olives are pretty slow growing, aren't they, Mr. Slack? I mean, what size replacement trees are we speaking about, and how will we be compensating this biomass reduction?
What our plan is, obviously I have gray hair. We don't have a lot more time on the planet, so our intention was that the first 2 trees would be like 36-inch boxes, and the last tree probably would be a 24.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chair Feck.
My question was exactly.
Okay, great. Any other discussion?
I don't like this kind of agenda item where I can see both perspectives, and I'm really, really torn. And when that happens to me, I just go back to the municipal code. I'm not seeing that we are finding any, there's no findings for removal is my problem. If somebody could help me out if they see a finding for removal.
The only thing I could see would be that by replacement with 3-to-1, with an olive, that we would maybe be achieving in the future a little bit greater biomass, and that would be important.
So, Mr. Slack, can you maybe comment to that in terms of 3 trees, 24 to 36 inches? How effectively does that offset the liquid amber?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think to put it simply, over time, it would significantly offset, one tree. I think specifically in this area, the performance of the sweet gum, it may not get as large as like some sweet gums in other parts of town too, given the soil conditions, but it's very difficult to say. But I think anytime you're talking about, olive trees or medium-sized trees, the sweet gum could be medium to large, and you're talking about 3 trees versus 1. So I think long-term with success, you would be offsetting the biomass.
Okay, I'm going to go for a motion. Let's move this along. I'm going to move that we approve the removal of the American sweet gum on the condition of the replacement of 3 trees. I'm saying this whether they're in a line or not. There need to be 3 trees on the property. 236 and a 24-inch olive, and that this would fulfill the principles of good forest management.
I will second that. Any discussion?
So I guess my discussion would be that as much as I want to agree with you, I'm going to not, based on establishing precedent. I don't see that it's good forest management to remove a healthy, vibrant tree and plant 3 less mature ones, at least not all at the same time, so.
Any other discussion? And I see that point. I definitely see that point. It's as much as the municipal code is black and white, there just basically aren't any, it's just not a black and white world. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second, so we're going to do a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Me?
Okay, I think we got a 5-2 on that one. Okay, shoreline.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a cook pine. This is located within the front setback of the property at 1427 Shoreline Drive. The application, the applicant listed essentially debris concerns and then just noted that the tree leaned over towards the neighbor's property and that, there's quite a bit of debris accumulation specifically on the neighbor's property. It's worth mentioning that the species of tree is a cook pine. It's very interesting. I'm not sure if we've discussed it before, but every single cook pine leans towards the equator. And that lean is more pronounced the further it gets away from the equator, and it becomes more upright the closer it is. So the lean's quite natural, and you can observe it all throughout town where you see cook pines. The committee reviewed the tree, determined it was in good health, and just quite simply that debris is just not a valid criteria for setback tree removal, and made a motion to deny the request for the removal of the cook pine at 1427 Shoreline Drive.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's my new fun fact. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack?
So is a cook pine's also a monkey, called a monkey puzzle tree? Oh,
Yeah, I didn't think it looked like a monkey puzzle.
I read monkey puzzle on
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, it was just incorrectly identified on the application by the applicant. They're in the same genus, it's just a different species.
Any questions? Readjust. Okay, we have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
No hands are raised.
Okay. With that, I will open it up for discussion and/or a motion.
You guys are going to miss me when I'm
We
not
certainly
making all
are.
these motions. Come on.
Somebody needs to step up. We have a replacement.
I can make a motion. Happy to make a motion. I'll make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to deny the removal of the Cook Pine at 1427 Shoreline Drive.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, and that takes us to our final one, which is Modoc Road.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove a total of 9 trees, 1 red ironbark, 7 manna gum, and 1 lemon-scented gum from the front setback at 3775 Modoc Road. Most of the commissioners will recall on September 28, 2022, we reviewed this same item. The applicant presented, I think, a more thorough presentation and made some modifications to the existing landscape plan. And during that meeting, the commission made a motion to refer it back to the Street Tree Advisory Committee so they could see the changes and take another look at the project and make a recommendation based on the changes that have been made. The applicant's requesting removal of the trees for several different reasons. I think there's maintenance concerns, debris. There's a large-scale project proposed with several improvements throughout the property, but within the front setback, the applicant's proposing like some signage improvement, comprehensive landscape improvements, and as part of that, they're proposing to put in a bioswale. And a bioswale is sort of like a well, it's a swale. It's a depression in the ground. Its purpose is really to manage like stormwater infiltration, nuisance water, and to try to treat it prior to making it into the storm drain system, which usually makes its way into the ocean. As part of that too, they're trying to take those trees out, to make a more comprehensive bioswale element. The bioswale component, while desired, is not a city requirement. I think it's important that we bring to light that fact. They're highly motivated to do that, but that it's currently not something that's conditioned from the city. The committee's reviewed the trees at length both times. I think we were out there for probably 45 minutes the first meeting, and we went back out there for probably another 30 minutes the second time around. Comments from the committee regarding these trees, they're extremely well established. Most of them, aside from one that's in, sort of maybe a poor to fair health are in quite good health. I think when you look at the trees, one of the big, sort of challenges is their close proximity to these overhead electrical lines. So Edison is pruning at a very frequent basis, probably annually. They're doing some side pruning. As a result of that, the trees kind of have a sweep, out over the parking structure that's on the property. But again, just in terms of tree health and function, the committee comments from the committee were that these trees are large, well established, all in pretty good health. The arborists on the committee, did acknowledge that some pruning would go a long way in terms of managing overextension and just cleaning up the trees in general. That would also have a pretty significant impact on just the debris that's associated with the trees as well. And ultimately, after review, determined that the existing trees on site provided significant benefit, would be a material loss to the community, and made a recommendation to the commission to deny the request to remove the 9 trees at 3775 Modoc Road.
Okay, questions? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
It's regarding the bioswale. If they didn't put the bioswale, or how much of a benefit is the bioswale to your property? To the property, that's my question. How important is it?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, I know that the project applicant team is here. I would defer to them to answer that question. If one of you would come
Yeah, I'd say come on up and just, I would say at this point, address the question, and then there's also public comment period. And you'll have 2 minutes.
Sure. My name is Chris Dufour. I'm a landscape architect with RM Design Group. The bioswale is basically intended because recently we were told with FEMA that the map has been adjusted after the Thomas fires. Our project is now in the floodplain, and so the notion is that get as much storage in the frontage area as possible. It's still not enough for a 100-year storm event, but it's still a first. It buys us time, and so that is what the goal is to get as much storage capacity as we can in that area in the event that there is a 100-year or 50-year storm event.
Thank you.
On my site visit, that's a pretty isolated piece of your property. You know, I mean, it's got the garage and the road. How does it really impact the total campus? When we read the report, it's like going to, you know, make a, I don't see how it can handle the issues that happen on the rest of the campus, or is it just the garages? It seems.
Chairman McGill and Commissioner Beebe, I believe I could speak a little bit to that. I'm Alan Lewis. I'm a civil engineer with RM Design Group. What I do understand is that because of this revised flood map, there is a risk that stormwater will be coming from off-site and will cause flooding to this property. FEMA does base their flood models on topography, and upstream, this culvert that runs under the 101 freeway is undersized. It's not my place to argue with FEMA. We just have to deal with what their models show. And so this property, as you might already know, is fairly developed. There's not much space where we can provide flood mitigation and stormwater treatment. So with that said, removal of the eucalyptus trees, and I should just add that in general, I'm not in favor of removing fully grown trees, but in this situation, this would provide 3 times more volume with the area that we have, and we don't have any other area where we can provide that much volume for on-site storage.
Can I, a second, back to the culvert.
Yes, ma'am.
The culvert is upstream. If
Yes.
it blocks, it's going to flood upstream, not down. As we've looked through the creeks issues, our issue is the other side of the freeway, not on your side of the freeway.
So the best analogy I can offer is that it's a bit of like a bathtub, and what water will do is as it backs up and rises, it will look for the next lowest point, and that lowest point is coming across the 101, and then it makes its way south along Modoc Road, and it spreads out over a wide area, but part of it runs across the entirety of the property.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing I might add is I believe that this project, as it is a redevelopment, falls under Tier 2 or Tier 3, and stormwater treatment is a requirement under this tier per Creeks Division requirements.
But, yes, but also with stormwater treatment, it could be permeable pavers, it could be a lot of other treatments that would affect a greater area in the facility.
Yes, this is true. This would provide, will fulfill multiple requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Slack? I think you've hit on some.
Chair Longstreet, and I mean, there you go, back in the chair seat on the last meeting.
Where's my gavel?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think before you is actually a landscape plan that the applicants have. It is not a construction development
Yes,
plan that triggers
That's kind of
stormwater
where I was going to go,
requirements.
yeah. So I mean, I guess I have a couple of questions, and I'll start with what you've just brought up, which is that what I think we've seen both the last meeting and this meeting is a landscape plan, and really what we're looking at is an engineering issue, and I'm not seeing any actual engineering. And not that we're a commission that it looks at engineering, but also Commissioner Longstreet, I think, just alluded to a pretty important point, and which is that when we're looking at stormwater mitigation, I would be very interested in looking at, before a row of mature trees along a major thoroughfare were taken down, I'd be very interested in looking at what alternative solutions to stormwater mitigation had been looked at, like permeable pavers. And have you had any discussions along those lines?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, essentially not in any level of detail. I mean, the charge of both the commission and the committee is really to look at the trees and the setback, the value they provide to the community, and whether there's a finding that supports those removals. As a member of the RRM team did say, eventually the project will have a stormwater determination. It will fall into a tier category. But as Member Longstreet alluded to, that mitigation can happen all throughout the property. There's absolutely no requirement that all stormwater treatment occurs within the front setback, and that tier has not even been determined yet.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question really gets to the pruning and the lean. I mean, the lean is obviously pronounced, and you drive through the drive, you see that it's very heavily pruned where the power lines are, and then leans over the garages. And there was discussion in the application about the trees being really not appropriate for the space. What pruning could be done to make a difference there, and how would that, let me try to figure out a simple way to ask the question. Would it be over pruned? To prune it properly, would that be too much for those trees?
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, based on the comments from the arborists that are on the committee, the trees haven't been pruned in a significant amount of time. There's really no evidence that there's been a lot of maintenance. If you were to come in and start really looking at like thoughtful management of those trees, it's like a less is more approach. So they've essentially persisted for who knows how long with minimal to no pruning. So you could come in and you would do slight canopy reduction, manage overextension, and slowly kind of work them back. You see what the tree gives you. You could encourage like adventitious bud, like dormant buds popping and almost like recreate new canopy. I mean, that you just don't know about those things. So that's why it's good to exercise with like a light hand when you're going to be pruning a large tree like this.
Okay, and we had some of that discussion last time, I know. It's
Correct.
All right, Commissioner Aldana?
Yeah, one more question. I know a few months ago on the same road, maybe a mile away, we approved to cut down 30 trees for a bike lane. What's the difference of those 30 trees versus these?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, every application is unique, and when we look at applications and the rationale for those, the removals that occurred were in the public right-of-way and were various species and sizes. And if memory serves correct, I don't have the information in front of me, but the comments even at the commission level was the gained public benefit from putting in the pedestrian and bike pathway was of significant comprehensive benefit to the community, and that was really the rationale that drove that decision.
Okay, I have one last question, and then we will open it to public comment because we actually have a fair few slips. Just in thinking of the one that we just discussed, with the biomass associated with these trees versus the biomass of the proposed trees, do you have any comments in terms of the offset that would provide, the proposed trees?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I believe the applicant's proposing like 14 trees of various species. So the number's greater. I think, the real answer is, and long-term, it's not going to offset, probably. These eucalyptus species are huge, these trees. I don't know the age. I'd be interested to know what age they actually are, but they're quite large, very mature. I think the applicant did a nice job with the proposed new species, being cognizant of trying to like maximize the size they could be, but also, recognizing there's overhead utility constraints. I think for those reasons, you'll never offset the existing biomass of the trees on site.
Okay.
It's just an honest answer.
Okay, thanks. No, that's good. All right, with that, we got a fair bit, so I'm going to open up for public comment. I'm going to use the slips in the order they were given to me. And you all know you've got 2 minutes. If it's something that you've already addressed, no need, in questions and answers, probably no need to repeat it. And we will start with Douglas. Okay, I thought it was Tucker, but I wasn't sure. Sorry.
Same thing last time, chicken scratch.
Okay.
Sorry about my handwriting, I apologize.
No problem, it's better than mine. Okay, you
Appreciate
got
your time.
2 minutes.
When we recently presented at the STAC committee, one of the committee members said to me, sounds like you're only CYAing yourself. Unfortunately, I didn't really understand why he was saying it. It was a little bit perplexing to me. Because Vista was built in 1965, FEMA changed the floodplain in 2021. So in essence, our liability is limited. Then I started thinking about it more and more, and I realized he was right. Because at the end of the day, I'd never want to be put in a position to have to make a phone call to a family member to tell them that I could have done something different, to not have to make a phone call and tell the family member that a resident died because we could have done something differently. I know that's a very harsh statement, but that's the reality. We stopped our project and spent 6 months studying the entire campus. We did a topographical study. We brought in hydrologists and civil engineers to look at the entire campus, to put in mitigation measures, and to look at how, as the campus continues to evolve, we can put in measures to protect the residents in case of a flood or natural situation with regards to stormwater. That means that this is our first line of defense. This is the area that we're looking at to start us off with protecting our residents and our staff. It's the largest area that we can to protect our residents. It's 9,000 square feet. We've already put in certain areas semi-permeable pavers, and the other entrances, the front entrances on the east and the west, we're planning on putting in additional semi-permeable pavers. There's other bioswales that we're planning on putting in, but by far, because of the buildings that we have, the structures that are already existing, this is the largest area for us to be able to manage our time. Time is of the essence. We need time to be able to evacuate residents. We need time to be able to put sandbags up in case there's another natural disaster. That's not necessarily a 100-year flood event, but something that we can't manage. We need time, and that's what this does. It gives us time because of what the hydrologists have said, the water will flow onto the campus. And that's in essence what it is.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, thanks for that. Alan Lewis.
Chairman, Commissioners, I don't have any further comment. I just wanted to say thank you for your consideration and for your time tonight. Just providing information to the best of our knowledge. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, just want to understand better the issues, I would be happy to impart some of that knowledge to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, don't go away. Rachel Raynor.
Hi, good evening. Rachel Raynor with RRM Design Group. Just wanted to provide some additional information on the processing of the project in question on the Vista Del Monte property. I think this came up last time as well, but wanted to convey that we're at really the beginning of the process. Doug had mentioned that they prepared the hydrology study in 2020, halting further upgrades to the property, one of which is the perimeter landscaping project that we're actively working on. We went to the Architectural Board of Review in June of this year, where we received direction to go through the STAC and PRC process. So we really haven't made much progress on that ABR application, and our next step was to come to you. And so this is really our critical path to move our application forward, just because we need to know whether the trees are staying or they're going to be removed. The last thing I wanted to make reference to was the 60-plus petition letters that we did forward to the commission from residents and staff. on the Vista Del Monte property, as well as letters from their grounds and budget committees. So just wanted to convey the urgency, and the subject is a passionate one for those residing and working on the campus. So just wanted to urge the commission to make the recommendation for removal of the 9 trees and deny the recommendation from the stack. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Okay, next is Maury Trimon with Stack.
Good evening, commissioners and Chair McGill. We were careful in reviewing this project both times. The second time, we had a lot more information from the applicants, and they'd reviewed requirements. I find it significant that they have not been required in any way by any organization that have looked at the new floodplain that they must install a bioswale. And my understanding of bioswales is that they handle a small amount of water, not a large amount. We also looked at the property, and I could be wrong on that, I'm not a hydrologist, but that's my understanding as a landscape professional. It was also significant to me that when they did their landscape plan, the trees that they're going to plant or wish to plant, if we remove 9 existing full-grown trees, are in the same location almost exactly as the ones they want to remove. So I'm baffled as to how the removal of these full-grown trees allows them to make significant flood control mitigation on the property. And in end result, we felt that even if the bioswales were important, and they are to the community, I mean, their goal is to redirect insignificant amounts of water, but water, rain, et cetera, not usually a huge flood event, a 100-year event, to replenish our aquifers. And so it slows down the water so that the water can filter into our aquifers. We did not find that the value of, if they really cannot put a bioswale in, we did not find that the bioswale they could put in would significantly outweigh the value to the community of 9 grown trees. In addition, these trees have already made their piece. Done? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you. And then we have Chris Dufour. Okay.
Hi, me again.
Yeah, you again.
I'll keep it short, but I do want to address some of the questions or comments that came up. Regarding the storage amount, you're right, we do have other tools in the tool bag. We do have permeable pavers, we do have underground storage. A lot of those come at cost, and then a lot of those come a lot easier when you have a new construction site. We're on an existing construction site, so we have to tuck it in places that we have on new projects that we're working on. This front basin is probably the biggest and easiest bang for the buck because it's at the high end of the site. It's when the water's coming in, it's the front line, essentially. Once you get past there, you start hitting buildings immediately. You could potentially put pavers in the front, but the amount of water that you could get in certain areas, we're just trying to get as much storage capacity as we can. And once I said before, even with the basin, we're not getting what we need. To the regard of we're putting trees back where they were taking out, we're actually pulling them back. We're putting them on the slope, the back slope of the bank. We do want to keep trees there. We are open to what species, what size would get put there. In the earlier stack committee meeting, there was some discussion about, well, do we want to put a full-size tree there? And we're open to that. We were just putting in smaller trees, understanding that we would be putting them in underneath power lines, and we didn't want to break the rules again by putting another tree that would just get hacked. I think I would leave the rest of the time if there is further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Warren McPherson. That's you.
Madam Chair, Commission members. I'm a certified arborist as part of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and I want to speak to the aesthetics of the tree row there. Some might make the case for removing the trees due to their deformed canopies. I understand that, but I want to reiterate what Mr. Nathan Slack said, that the trees could be pruned properly to ameliorate that situation. So please don't vote them down for aesthetic reasons. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. Preserve those trees. We all voted unanimously to keep them on the committee. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Okay, ta-da. It didn't get any easier over the last couple months. Shall we open it up for discussion?
What's the total amount of people that live in that development? And then also, as far as for future trees, would you consider putting the utilities underground?
Current population's 204 residents, and about, on average, we'll have about 50 staff members during the day, but we have a total of 104 staff members. As far as utilities goes, I think that's something that we would have to talk to the utility companies about. That's not really under our purview, but.
Or ours.
Yeah, or Alan can talk to it.
Yeah, this is really not, I think we're not in the utility line business, so.
Just briefly, undergrounding utilities, especially with Edison, is notoriously long and expensive, and they take their time with projects like that. That's what I can speak to as far as undergrounding.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Any other, Commissioner Yolanda-LaBerge?
So you had mentioned, CYA, and I totally understand that concept, and wanting to make sure you're not having to make that important call. But are we talking of, if worst case scenario, 100-year flood, it's coming over the freeway, it's coming towards the property? I mean, are we talking like Louisiana and hurricane type of flooding? Are we talking about Montecito mudslide type of flooding? Or what are we talking about that is so dire that we need to remove these trees to create water diversions?
Director Zachary, do you want to step in first or let the?
I could speak a little bit to that. Before I came with RRM, I worked in Houston as a drainage engineer. The kind of flooding that we're seeing here is a lot more common in that side of the United States. So I was very surprised to see that it can happen here. But from what I understand with the mudslides a few years ago, this is not unheard of. And what I do understand, I should just mention that I'm also pursuing a doctoral degree in urban water management. And from what I understand, as far as with climate change, extreme storm events, as with any extreme events, are becoming more frequent. And the extremes are intensifying. So it's not uncommon, and it could be more common to see these types of events happen in the future. And that's really what I can speak to in regards to this kind of drainage event.
I used to live downstream of Barker Dam.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, if I could just add, we've done a whole watershed assessment of the Arroyo Borough watershed, and essentially the pinch point, as Commissioner Longstreet mentioned, most significant concern is the channelization of Arroyo Borough above 101. The fact that in Santa Barbara, every one of our creeks will create flooding just about in many places. In some places, it's far more serious than others because of the channelization of our creeks, because of our topography, because of any number of reasons. And so, certainly that the Arroyo Borough Valley in this area is definitely affected. It's not just this property. It's essentially throughout this section of the watershed. And the only way to really try to mitigate some of that is to really make changes to the creek structure, which is a very difficult thing to do given the amount of urban development that we do have. The commission is presented with the concept of what they would like to achieve, include in essence, reducing the potential for flood flows to impact the property. How the commission chooses to vote is entirely up to you. The extent to which a bioswale will mitigate what level of storm, I don't believe the specific analysis has been done. However, the owners are aware that any major redevelopment of this property will have to take into consideration of that, which is not what they're considering yet, but at some point will be if the property is to be redeveloped, that they'll have to take that into consideration for the entire site, whenever that might happen.
One last time, I completely agree, and I would just like to add that because of this flooding situation, the nature of the flow that would happen is cascading overland flow. And what this swale would permit is for water to be directed around structures and sufficiently away from where any person or vehicles or any property would be located, so that it would follow its most natural course into the next available stream. So.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Longstreet.
I think we've gotten way off track, and I think it's time for us to bring it back to the commission and to make our decision on the trees.
To that conversation, to your question, is just part of our disaster planning, and the reason I brought up time is because the way that the water fills is it doesn't happen necessarily like the mud flows did. It might be a backflow where it takes time. So by redirecting and allowing the water to flow, it gives us time to evacuate, or it gives us time to put sandbags in place. So it's a time issue. And that's part of our disaster plan that we've put into place for our community.
Okay. So the remit of this commission is trees. I think the reason that, I don't know if I agree that we've gotten totally off track or not in this instance, because really the issue that I'm seeing is that, for me personally, is we're talking about a pretty significant tree removal and this sort of unsettling feeling that it's kind of a Band-Aid approach, and that the not really understanding what part of the problem will be solved, what issues really will get effectively addressed, and what else could be done. It's and maybe it's just the way the process is designed, but it feels like coming in and approving a bunch of tree removals when you don't really fully understand what you're achieving. That's not something I'm totally comfortable with. Commissioner Clark.
And in addition to that, what I don't feel comfortable with, given the fact that there are alternatives to the proposed plan right now, is that we're worried about flooding caused by climate change. I don't think the only answer can be to cut down trees, because cutting down trees is one of the things that has led us to climate change. It just seems like all the alternatives have not been explored.
But the flip side of it, of course, is that we're dealing with some of the most vulnerable members of our population.
I take senior life very seriously. I'm a cardiac nurse. My job is to save your residents, so I'm not just dismissing you. I love your people.
I guess my question is, so I'm looking about just kind of going back to FEMA guidelines and just kind of what they've set in place. Is there rules or that we need to be compliant to FEMA guidelines, in the sense of FEMA set these guidelines forth, we have this timeline to be compliant with what they're asking us to do? Because if we're going to remove the trees, I think it would be nice to know if there's a set FEMA saying this, it needs to be done, we need to take action to address those issues before.
We'll let Mr. Slack address that. Thank you.
Just because I'm seeing guidelines, I'm not necessarily seeing mandates, I guess, yeah.
Mr. Slack or Director Zachary, would either of you like to address
Chair
that?
McGill and Commissioners, I was just going to try to bring the conversation back to the trees. The Commission's charge is to make a decision on whether the trees, should retain or be removed. A lot of this other stuff, it's up to them to come up with solutions for these issues. It's up to them as an applicant, whether there's trees or not, once like a stormwater tier has been determined, for them to figure out how they're going to manage that. So we really need to focus on whether there's a finding that supports this tree removal and the commission either wants to approve or deny the existing trees that are in the setback. It's pretty much as simple as that in terms of the commission's purview and charge for this project.
And I agree with that, Mr. Slack. And I think the reason that it gets into the other issues is that the finding would have to be a reasonable and practical development or something, or public safety, one of those two, or both. And so it sort of by necessity gets into trying to understand better what the public safety issues are, and which for me are haven't been fully addressed. So I'm struggling with the finding.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the applicant wants to proceed with some landscape and site improvements on the property. They have a long-range view of what might need to happen to try to mitigate the impact of flood. That's not what you're considering today. If at some point in the future it included other changes to the property that are not before you today, which could affect other trees, that would most likely happen at that time when the engineering of the site has been done. So the question really comes back to just the trees, based on what the applicant proposes to do today to make site improvements.
I'm not sure that makes it any clearer. Okay, somebody would.
I move that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to deny the removal at 3775 Modoc Road.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion over and above what has already been discussed? Okay, if not, I'm going to take it to a vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, so I heard 4-3. Okay. You see, it's not getting, that one didn't get any easier with time. And yes, I think you already know this, but it says any action of the Parks and Recreation Commission made pursuant to Santa Barbara Municipal Code 1520 may be appealed to the City Council within 10 days. And I won't read the rest of it, but you know you have the right to appeal. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, we have some advisory committee members who have been waiting patiently. If you agree to take that item 4 in advance of item 3, which is the director's report.
Yes, yes. It will mean getting into finding it in the package. Thank you very much. Yes, so we have golf and tree, correct? And we are starting with golf, is that correct? Okay, let me find a spot in the package here. Okay, I'm good. All my nice orders are done. All right, so we have, the recommendation is that the commission hold interviews and make appointments to the Golf Advisory Committee and the Arts and Crafts and the Street Tree, and we have golf and street tree today. And we have, I believe we have 4 applicants for the Golf Advisory Committee, 2 Community at Large, 1 Los Paisanos, and 1 Santa Barbara Women's Golf Club. And what I'm going to do is just go in order that I've got them. Hello.
Before you continue, there is an error on this report. There are no applications for the Santa Barbara Arts and Crafts Show, so that wasn't,
Yes.
that was left.
Yes, okay. So that's why it was there and not with no applicants. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'll just call your name and come up, and if you have any remarks you would like to make in support of your application, you will have 2 minutes to do so. And the first person we have is Community at Large, Craig Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commission members. I'm Craig Moore, resident of Santa Barbara since 1989. I'm 74 years old and I'm retired from corporate business life, but I have no intention of retiring from my golf life, and I play well over 100 rounds per year. In addition to that, I practice 2 days per week, take lessons weekly if possible, play in a tournament once a month, and almost all my activities are at Santa Barbara Municipal Golf Course, Muni, or the Santa Barbara Golf Club, as it says on the sign. I'm a preferred member, practice club member, SCGA, US, Santa Barbara Men's Golf Club on the board of directors. And for the last 8 years, I've participated on the board of directors for the men's club. In December, this December will be my last month of that 8-year service. And that makes it possible for me to stand before you as a member at large in the advisory committee. During my 8 years as a board member, interestingly enough, we've increased the membership from 250 to 675 members. And the role I played in that was to, as a member at large, was to bring as much positive information about the course and about club membership and about golf in general to the attention of members and non-members of the golf club. I was introduced to Santa Barbara Golf when my family moved into San Roque, and my neighbor Richard Johns, and we would get together. Richard and I would get together, and we'd talk about the challenges with our kids, the challenges with our landscape, and golf.
And you are out of time.
So, but anyway, let me just say to you that I bring up a successful career of managing things well to you and as an opportunity for me to participate in a beneficial way to the committee.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We won't get into handicaps. Michael Woodward. Woodard, sorry. That's me not reading properly.
Sure.
Another community at large application.
Another member at large application.
Community at large, community at large.
Yeah. Continuing on, I've done it for a number of years in the past, and just time to do this all over again.
And thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it again.
Thank you. Okay, Los Paisanos, John Craig.
I would just like to continue my work for the Golf Advisory Board as a liaison for the Paisanos. And sometimes good things fall in your lap. Bibi, it's an honor to be here on your last day.
Thanks, John.
And we've known, and another thing on the MODOC thing, in 65, when I was roofing before I got on the fire department in 69, I put the roof on that parking structure there, so this has been kind of a strange day. But anyway, I look forward to serving and keeping an eye on the golf management out there. Randy Shannon and Course are doing a great job, and I'll be a good watchdog for you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
John served a long time.
Yeah. As has somebody else. All right, Santa Barbara Women's Golf Club, Maureen Massand.
We're going to miss you. Maureen Masson, and I represent the Women's Golf Club. I wish to continue, and I've been playing for 60 years, so it's in my blood, and I enjoy it very much representing my club. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have 4 applications and we have 4 positions. I would suggest that we make a motion.
Yes, I'd make a motion to appoint all 4 applicants. And thank you, for those of you that are serving already, thank you for everything you've done, because you've got us through some difficult transitions, and your support made it smoother. And thank you for our new member.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moved? Okay.
I'll miss coming to your Golf Advisory Committee meetings. I was just getting back into it.
Okay, and now we have 2 vacancies for the Street Tree Committee, and we have 2 applications. And the first application is Anthony DeMola. I see you. Come on up.
Good evening. Hi. I'm Anthony DeMola. I've served with the Street Tree Commission for 4 years now, 2 stints, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope my input has been beneficial to the team, and I would love to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and then we have Santos Escobar. Mr. Escobar.
Good evening, Chair McGill, Commissioners. My name is Santos Escobar. I'm the Ex-Parks Manager. I've had a nice time being on STAC, and I'd like to continue. I'm a native Santa Barbaran, so I truly love my community to continue to serve. So I'd appreciate a good vote, and that's it.
Thank
we are
you.
going to miss you, BB.
Can we discuss this?
Short and sweet.
All right, any discussion? Okay, anybody care to make a motion or discuss or ask questions?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
That we reappoint both Santos Escobar and Mr. Anthony DeMola to the Street Tree Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. And that takes us to our director's report.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, a couple of things we'd like to report to you for activities, initiatives in the past month, and some of it spans a little bit longer than that and what's coming ahead as well. Want to share with you, as you know, we have Erin Blasey as our new marketing coordinator, and one of the focuses that she's had in her initial time with the department, which right now is coming on 6 months, is to undertake a new marketing strategy that focused on community connection and engagement in the social media platforms, and to really do our best to provide the public with updates that are easy to access, understand, and share with others. Our content focuses on informing viewers about the vast range of our programs, events, and services, as well as highlighting some of the behind-the-scenes, did you know Parks and Recreation staff do X, which we all do that in our jobs. There's things that we know that people don't know that we do. So as a result, Erin was pleased to share with staff, and obviously want to share with the commission as well, that our social media following has grown across the main social channels, and Instagram, those of us who are on Instagram, by 25%. In a short period of time, that's pretty good, darn good. And we've also been able to reach many people that otherwise aren't going to be reading the city's website, for example, or may not be on some other outreach tool that we use. We currently have 2,500 followers, and we've reached over 50,000 unique users over the past 5 months. This is something that Erin has taken seriously. One of the great things about bringing new people into the organization is they bring a new set of eyes, and they bring the experience that they've had from somewhere else. And I think at the last meeting, I mentioned to the commission, we've had 50% of our staff turnover in the last 3 years. And some of those positions more than once for a variety of reasons, retirements, people moving on to better positions elsewhere, sometimes moving within the city itself. But we've also been able to bring in new people, and really very fortunate that we have a lot of new energy in the department to carry us forward. Our next item is Los Baños del Mar. It happens every year. We have to close our old pool and undertake all sorts of maintenance projects. We use the holiday season as a good time to do that, since often people are elsewhere enjoying their family and friends, school's out of session, and it's a quieter time. And so we will be closed from December 24th to January 2nd for a variety of cleaning activities, improvements that need to be made, scheduled maintenance. I have to say that the staff of the city, working with contractors and colleagues, do an incredible amount to keep that pool running. It was built in 1939, and as you can imagine, there's aspects of it that are quite unique to its age. It's a well-loved facility. And then the next item relates to our office closure. This is a closure that was initiated back in the economic downturn. It was part of the time in which staff furloughed in order to save money. And since that ended, the city has transitioned to closing every holiday season. So that closure period varies depending on when the holiday lands. This year it'll be from December 22nd through January 2nd. That's regular offices, so the 620 office, for example, will be closed. However, operating staff will be on a sort of holiday light schedule throughout that closure, because our parks will still be used by our residents, and we have facilities that we need to maintain. We also have some events that are happening in our facilities, but it also quiets down to around the holiday season. And then a bigger item, this is something that has been under discussion internally in the city for some time. The Creeks Division is going to be moving to the new Sustainability and Resilience Department effective January of this coming year. They have offices that have been leased, and the work groups that will be part of this new department include Creeks, Environmental Services, Energy and Climate, and then also Public Works Department has been home to a lot of our transportation planning, as well as mobility, so all of those bicycles you see everywhere in town. The mobility coordinator is very much involved in that. So it's a change, obviously, for the city organization. I think at the same time, it can be viewed as an opportunity. The city's doing many different things today than they did when the Creeks Division was established back in 2001, which is a long time. It's had a great time in Parks and Recreation. I think many of the aspects of what Creeks is a result of being in the Parks and Recreation Department, and the fact that many of our park open spaces have streams that run through them. Thousands of people use our coastal ocean and our beach areas, areas that are under the purview and management of Parks and Recreation. We've had great synergy with the work of the Creeks Division. There's also other environmental programs in the city, and an opportunity to find ways to make them more cohesive and collaborative. Luckily, for now at any rate, the longevity of both my role, the position that I held as the first Creeks manager, and then Cameron Benson, and then a number of the staff that are long-term staff in Creeks, we will hopefully be able to set up a series of agreements and procedures so that for the next 10 to 20 years, we continue to work collaboratively, even though we're housed in different departments. So the Creeks Division will continue to maintain all of the areas that have been improved in our open space parks. So those aren't general fund funded maintenance items. It's what we started 20 years ago. The general fund can absorb some of these projects. And then working closely with our parks and forestry staff, because there is good team collaboration there as well. And then lastly, tentative commission agenda items. In January, you will be welcoming a new commissioner to the commission, taking up very large shoes. Jeffrey Chang was appointed by the council to serve on the commission, so he will be starting in January. In addition to your regular items, we've been working on updates to our community garden policies and procedures, And this will also be an opportunity for the commission to review its advisory committee liaison appointments and see if you want to explore a different advisory committee. I'll have an answer to Creeks by then as well. And then in February, transition to talking more about commercial activities in parks, which has exploded first because of COVID and continues. We also have our park staff, particularly Simone Herrera, has been developing a plan. Council allocated $750,000 of the recovery money from the federal government towards doing turf renovation and irrigation upgrades, much needed in many of our park systems. He will report out that work that's moving forward. And then also golf capital improvement projects. We're in a position finally, financially, that we can start reinvesting, not just in the golf course, but everything under the road and what you need to actually make sure buildings function and things are working well. And Tina Nelson will bring that report to you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any?
Oh, I have a couple of questions. With the creeks moving, will this commission have a liaison to the Creeks Commission still? Because I think it is the projects they do, the impacts, it would be good to have a commissioner who liaison to that.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Longstreet, the purview of the commission per the charter does actually include creeks. We did the charter amendment, and I will be sharing your interest and desire, and I think there is a great nexus with having a liaison from this commission to the Creeks Advisory Committee.
And my other question is, creeks are under this commission, which is a charter commission. Is there going to be a commission for this new encompassing department so that there is adequate public comment on things that are happening? We're looking at the management of Measure B money, which has always from the beginning of creeks, been a big issue because it is a pot of money that is desired by many within the city that we have to be careful of. That was voted in by the people to do creeks and to do water quality. So is there going to be a commission that at the same level as this commission that has oversight over these different departments?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Longstreet, I don't have an answer for you. However, I'd be happy to pose that is a question that's coming from the commission. The City Council does have a sustainability committee, a 3-member sustainability committee, and they've been largely involved in discussion around the city's various sustainability initiatives, which aren't all housed in one department. They are throughout the city. They're throughout our department as well. What we do for urban forestry is very key to environmental sustainability. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that.
I think those are really important questions to look at going forward because, we've always carefully protected that money, and the Creeks Committee has had wonderful oversight over it and have been very protective. I would hate to see any of that diluted because I do believe as a voter, I voted for water quality. And so I want to see that go forward in the future. So probably an area I won't let go when I leave.
Good. Yeah, I think that's, I guess I have this sort of background concern that we've got a solution, we're fixing a problem that isn't broken and losing some transparency along the way. So I think the questions about how oversight is going to be structured beyond City Council are important. Any other comments, questions? So on that note, I think maybe we'll take a final farewell to Commissioner, former chair, former vice chair, former everything, Longstreet, and adjourn the meeting.
And happy holidays.